So can you hear me all right? Okay, good. Yeah, so thanks to James for his great talk, and I felt a lot of same things and he told. And by the way, I didn't see it. So how many of you are researchers? Only a couple. So who of you are hackers? So you are researchers, actually, right? Okay. So short introduction about myself. So I'm Nestori. Hi, I'm from Finland. I work for SecureWorks, and my nice title is Senior Principal Security Researcher. And what does that mean? It means that they pay me for hacking, and that's it. So I'm kind of living my dream. I'm best known maybe as Dr. Azure AD. So that's my Twitter handle. And I've created a software called AAD internals, and that's pretty much what I'm best known of, maybe. And you are free to tweet about me or follow me on Twitter and take pictures and all kind of that. For me, this year has been quite interesting. So after COVID, this is my 8th in-person presentation. And I flew here from Germany, from Bonn, and there was a smaller conference called Cloud Identity Summit. And that's me there. And that was actually quite a nice picture. So one of my friends said, that's very good for memes. And then someone created like that kind of thing. So now you can use that as a meme. So you're welcome. So my content today. So this is more like from hacker to hacker. So I'm going to tell you a war story, or 2 of them, and how I made like $40,000 US from them on top of my salary from my hobby. Nice addition to that. So I'm first going to introduce you a little bit that what is directory synchronization in Azure AD, and then how to abuse that, how they fix that, and how I evade the fix. So that's pretty much the story. I'm going to use in my demos. Well, actually, I decided I'm not going to do live demos because of the network is not that well here. So I'm going to use slides. But anyways, I have a tool called AAD Internals. It's an open source admin hacking toolkit. Who of you have ever used that? There's a couple, yes. And I have stickers. I can share them with you after the talk somewhere here. I don't know. And it's an open source. It's available in GitHub. And it's also listed by Mitre Attack, if you know that, as a software. And it's being used by a group called APT29, also known as Nobilium. So I'm pretty much, I don't know, should I be honored or not? Maybe. Okay, so short introduction to directory synchronization. What is it? So there are different authentication options you can use in Azure AD. So you can be either cloud only, so where everything is like in cloud, or probably you are like more like hybrid, where you are using same set of credentials in your on-prem than in Azure, right? And you need to have a synchronization for that to happen. But you have different authentication options, but every single option of these is using directory synchronization, and that is there. And what it does actually, so the only purpose of that is to keep your on-prem AD synchronized to Azure AD. And that's pretty much what it's doing. So you have users here, they are synchronized here, groups are synchronized, and then your devices are synchronized if you want to. You don't have to, but that's usually how it goes. And to be able to do that Azure AD Connect has service accounts, 3 of them actually. So there's a service account in your on-prem AD that allows you to read users from there. And also if you are using a thing called password hash synchronization, which kind of synchronizes your, well, not your password, but password hashes from on-prem to Azure AD, you have a read-only replication secret synchronization, which means that account can read everybody's password hashes. So that's quite powerful, right? And then in cloud, you have a different account that is allowed to create users, edit users, or delete users, which are synchronized, right? So that also have kind of a powerful like permissions. And then we have a an account that you are running that service as. And what it can do, it only can reset password of this account, but nothing else. So that's how it goes. And yeah, so it's actually quite easy to get these accounts. So I'm going to try to show you only one live demo I have. So let's see how it goes. So here I am. So I've loaded my tool here, AAD internals, and I'm logged into a computer that is running the AAD Connect. And those credentials are stored there somewhere in a database. And I created a function that runs like this, and it like extracts those passwords. Now, what is good is that you can get these credentials, passwords, get them back home and use them from there. You don't have to be on that server unless they are protected. But what I've learned or seen, that's not really much the case quite often. So usually you can use those credentials from anywhere around the world if you get those. So you compromise that computer and you can be that synchronization, if you will. Now, a little bit more technical background. So how these users or objects are linked. So there are people or users in your on-prem AD, and you synchronize them to Azure AD. You actually create a copy of that user. And there are some attributes that are following that user. For instance, user principal name comes to user principal name, right? And then your on-prem object GUID becomes an immutable ID, which is just the same object GUID, but it's base 64 encoded. And then your SID comes, on-prem security identifier, and then the object in cloud has object ID, of course. So that's like the identifier in the cloud. But then also, if the user is synchronized, there's a switch or attribute called DirSync enabled true, which means that that user in Azure AD is now synchronized, which means that its source of authority is on-prem, not cloud. There can be also users that are not synchronized. So there can be cloud-only users and then mixed like synchronized users. But so that's why this attribute here is important. So that's cloud knows that what that actually that Azure AD Connect account can do. Okay, so then for abusing. So that was a very crash course for Azure AD synchronization techniques. So how I usually do my research stuff. So mostly I do man-in-the-middle attacks. So I use Fiddler here between the client and cloud. For instance, that Azure AD Connect synchronization is client, which is connecting to cloud. And if I put there in the middle a proxy, I can see the traffic there. So that's pretty much my research method. So I take a thing, run something, and see what happens between that and the cloud. And also, like James, in some cases, I take a client and try to reverse engineer what it's doing. I'm using ROMHACK API monitor. I don't know if you have heard about that, but that's a very powerful tool, maybe a bit old, but works like a charm. DNSpy allows you to decrypt basically .NET-based binaries to the PowerShell, sorry, not the PowerShell, but either C# or VB script, if you're using that. And then, of course, key to IDA or whatever debugging tool. And every now and then, I also need to read the manuals. So when I was doing this with Azure AD Connect, what I found out is this. So it's a little bit small print, sorry about that. But at the top, we can see that the protocol was SOAP XML plus MSBin1, which means that it's binary XML. And here is one of the messages Azure AD Connect was sending. And binary XML means that you replace those like envelope or header tags with a number. But in order for you to be able to turn that back from this binary code to plain text XML, it means that you need to know the dictionary, that what that O2 means. And there was a plugin made by some guy, I don't remember his name, but he had a plugin or add-on to Fiddler that was able to do that. But that didn't look like a really like a SOAP message, so there was something wrong. So it didn't work actually. And I looked at the code he had written where he built that dictionary. And here is the real standard, what should be in that dictionary. Can you spot the difference? It's there. Okay, so it was missing one value there. And I made a pull request and fixed that. And finally, I was there. As you can see here, it's a difference. So here's a sequence acknowledged, and here is a reply to, and the one at the lower is the correct one. So now I was able to really see what's happening there. So about Azure AD Connect synchronization. So it's using proprietary SOAP binary XML. It can do the CRUDing for objects, which means that it can create, read, update, and delete these users, which it has like synchronized to the cloud. And then I noticed that the target and the target of update or delete or whatever of those CRUD things is either source anchor, which is the immutable ID, or the cloud anchor, which is the object type underscore an object ID in Azure AD. So it's like user blah blah blah. So you could use either of these to as a parameter when you are changing things. So I'm going to show a demo about this in a couple of minutes. But then to password hash synchronization. So people, well, originally when Azure AD was introduced with identity platform for Office 365, you had to have two set of credentials. So one in on-prem and one in cloud, and that kind of annoyed people. Then came a thing called identity federation, but that was quite heavy stuff to do that. So then they introduced a password hash synchronization, which means that they are synchronizing your password hashes from on-prem to cloud, and then you can use the same password. And this happens in every like 2 minutes or so. And just to make sure that you understand that those passwords are not actually synchronized, but hashes of hashes. So they are using a function called RC2898 derive bytes function, which I think you or everybody know already. And technically, it's SHA-256 from the original MD4 hash, and you do, and with salt, and you do that 1,000 times. And so this is what is sent actually to the cloud. So there's a string. So we have the version, which is always 1. Hash function is always same. There's a salt and number of iterations, and then the actual hash. And actually, I'm able to use the same function to send password hashes. So for instance, I was playing around with the iteration, so I can actually, because I'm sending this myself, I can tell that I only did 1 iteration. That works fine. So I was able to make that less secure. Also, I was able to make it more secure by introducing more iterations. I did 10,000, but then the Azure AD didn't like that anymore, because it has to do that also every time someone is logging in, it had to do that like 10,000 times, and it didn't like that very much. Okay, so here's a demo. So I listed users from Azure AD, and we have the source anchor here, right, and the cloud anchor. And we choose to use Lin as an example. It's that one. And we just run a command. So set AAD into user password, use source anchor, and use password A. And that is sent to cloud. And this is how it looks like. So this is the actual SOAP message sent to Azure AD. And what we can see here is the source anchor right here. So that is the immutable ID. But if we go up a bit, we can see that the cloud anchor is empty, but it is there. And at this point, I was trying to wonder that, can I actually use that too? So can I use cloud anchor to reset passwords? And yes, I can do that. So the same, but now with the cloud anchor, and the message is again same, but now there's a cloud anchor, but there's no source anchor. And that kind of tells me that I can actually now use that. And what else can I do with that source anchor or cloud anchor? What can I do? So I can change the display name. So it's changed to "you've been hacked." So you can do this if you are able to get those credentials. So you can do this from home if you want to using my tool. And then you can also like delete users. So it's there, only deleted user. You can do that too, using the source anchor or cloud anchor. It doesn't matter. And then it was my first like what if moment. So I was wondering that, okay, the cloud anchor is like this. So it's formed like object type underscore and then the object ID in Azure AD. And could I use that to also do same stuff to cloud-only users, which are not synchronized? And yeah, I could do that. So even though the user was not synchronized, I was able to delete those users. I was able to reset their passwords, including global admins. So there was a clear like privilege escalation from on-prem admin of that Azure AD Connect box to global admin, because you were able to reset passwords, right? So now some of the pain I share with James. So here are my reports to Microsoft. So I tell that you can reset cloud-only passwords, and they say that's not non-MSRC case. And this was on May 2020. And then I created another one a year later, well, almost a year later, that it also now allows you to delete those users. I found out that you can delete all the global admins. So they can't log in because they are deleted, right? But that was like, this is intended behavior. And I was like, it isn't. And it was very frustrating. I had a lot of discussions with MSRC, and actually, finally, I knew a guy from Mystic, which is an organization in Microsoft that is doing the threat research, if you will. And they have like published those no billing reports lately. So that's an interesting organization there. And I knew the guy there, and I told him that could you please take a look, and he took a look. I don't know did it help or not, but they then said me that as initially stated, this is an intended behavior. However, we did uncover something else that is needs to be fixed. So they never had admitted that that was a vulnerability, but they said that they found something else. But anyways, as the last speaker said, there are different like categories and importance level, and this was severity was important, and the impact was elevation of privilege in cloud, which is usually very well paid, if you will. I think that's the most well paid currently, besides the Hyper-V, of course. And then after 500 days of the initial report, it was fixed like a year ago. And the bug was $20,000 for that. And it was pretty okay. I like that. But anyways, what actually we are able to do, or we were able to do, we are not able to do that anymore, but what we could do back then. So we were able to, reset cloud-only users' passwords, which should not be possible. Also, we could edit group members of the groups that were cloud. So I was able to add myself to a group that was that had assigned some higher privileges. I could delete the users, and that was actually quite interesting because you compromise that Azure AD Connect server. You get the credentials, you delete every global admins, and then you can call the company and, okay, you have 20 minutes to pay me $1 million, or I delete them for good. And yeah, but that was okay. So that was by design. And the other ones were actually fixed, even though they didn't fix the thing I reported, but eventually they got fixed. And also, what else we could do? So we could add like immutable IDs or seeds to cloud-only users, which means that you could then use those users for golden SAML or silver ticket attacks. So you could log in as them. So you don't need to delete them. You don't need to reset their password. You could log in as them if you just add that immutable ID to users and use that immutable ID in the golden sample tickets. But that's another story. And this was quite interesting. So you can also add on-premises SAM account name to any account. And I don't know if you are familiar with the term or concept of Azure AD joint devices, but anyway, it means that you have kind of registered this or joined the device to Azure AD. And then when you log in, it automatically logs also into your local domain using the username and password. Now, if you are able to change that on-premises SAM account name, it is actually using that name, not the one that user typed when he logged in. So it is using different username to log in. So for instance, this is a kind of academic way, but anyways, you know a guy who is a global admin, the domain admin, and he uses same password. You assume that in his personal account and then in the domain admin account. And now you are this admin who can reset that, you reset that, and then the user logs in with his computer. But now, instead of using his own username, he is using the domain admin username. So then the laptop logs in as a domain admin. And now you can hack the box and you are domain admin. But yeah, that's also like by design. So that is there. It could be used, but they are not going to do anything about that. Yeah, and the last one was that you could create fake hybrid joint devices, which allows you, in certain cases, bypass conditional access rules, which is kind of a firewall in Azure AD, if you will, that you can create rules to block access or grant access based on certain attributes, like, for instance, is the device hybrid joint. Okay, and then to the fix. So what is the fix, or what was the fix? So they introduced a new setting or directory synchronization feature, as they call it, which is called block cloud object takeover through hard maths, which is always easy to remember. And here at the bottom, we see the command that you need to run to set that. So set MSO desync feature block cloud blah 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 enable true, and then you can use the false, so it doesn't prompt you, are you sure about that or not? And that was the fix. Okay, and fine, it works fine. And then how to evade this? So this was not my intention to evade that. It was accident, actually. So little more about background on what happens when you are running this directory synchronization. So it runs automatically every 30 minutes, or if you manually start that. So for instance, if someone is leaving from your organization and you want to disable that immediately also in cloud, you disable it in on-prem and then say manually start AD sync cycle, and it will immediately do that. But otherwise, it's in every 30 minutes. And there's a parameter called desync features. It's a number, right? 172088, and that's quite self-explanatory, right? You know what that means? No, me didn't neither. But the configuration is fetched every time you run the synchronization. Okay, and if you change settings in Azure AD Connect Server, for instance, if you enable password hash synchronization, it does this. So it sends the new number of the features back to the Azure AD. So now it's different. So it's 89, and here it was 88. So it's a different. So this is the way how the Azure AD and the Azure AD Connect is talking to each other. So what features are enabled? So that's basically how they do that conversation. Okay, so now I noticed that if you are enabling this block cloud object takeover through hard maths feature, the desync features also changed. So we can see that the number is a little bit higher now. So it's not that what it was, but it's totally something different. So again, another what if, right? So the synchronization API allows modifying this the sync features number, and the fix that was introduced was the command that you need to run, and to run that command you need to be global admin. Okay, but if you do this with the synchronization API, you only need to be that account that is doing the synchronization, so you don't need to be global admin. So I was wondering that, can it be used to disable that fix? And guess what? Yes, we could do that. So they introduced this fix, I think it was November 3rd. And in November 5th, I was tweeting or exchanging messages in Twitter with a guy from Microsoft. So he was from product group. I'm not going to show his name because I didn't ask permission, but here are the tweets. So I also found, by the way to disable that. And he said, oh, that's bad. And yes, it makes the new feeds like unusable. So I reported that to MSRC, as I'm telling you there. But I'm going to show you first kind of like how did I found this out, okay? So this is a function from Microsoft MS Online PowerShell package that you can do to list those features that they are. And as you can see, there's a lot of those features, and some are on, some are off, okay? And I was like using the directory synchronization API, I was changing that number, and then I watched here what changed, okay? So that way I was able to kind of reverse engineer that. So here are actually my notes from Notepad, of course, because that's the best way to keep your notes. And here you can see that what the bits means. So I was able to figure out most of those. Some of those I had to actually reverse engineering or use the DNSpy to see the actual source code of that synchronization agent to find some of those, and the rest of was just like switching the bit on or off and see what happens in here. So that was how I was able to figure out how it works and what those values means. And also I was able to find out that that as a global admin using that Microsoft command, you were not able to change all of those settings. But with this API, you were able to change everything, even those that you are not supposed to do. And I don't know, like here are things that I haven't like even tried. That what does this mean? Enable cloud password password policy for password sync use. I don't know what that means. Or what does mean UPN, duplicate UPN resiliency? I don't know, but I would assume that that might break something, so I didn't even try that. But anyways, these were my like notes about that, and then I implemented this stuff in Azure AD or my AAD internals. Okay, so summary of this stuff. So the original vulnerability was the privilege escalation from the directory synchronization accounts role to global admin role. And tip for working with Microsoft is that be persistent if you think something is wrong. And it might be, I think James mentioned that don't be a dick. I think that was your words, not mine. So that helps. And also, especially this stuff, well, you are the real hackers. I'm just finding like these business logic errors. And especially in cloud, in world, there can be like 5 people who knows about this. You are the one. So it would be a quite interesting chance if those triagers who are looking your bug report are one of them. They usually are not. So you might need to explain things differently. And you can always contact me if you want help with that, because I'm in good terms with MSRC and I can, change the report. For instance, it was on February. There was one guy from India who was ranting in Twitter, if you will, that MSRC was bad guy. They didn't accept my report. And I sent him a message that we can have a look. And we actually split his report to 3 cases. One is now fixed. Two is fixed and one has fixed coming at some point. But one of those things was there was an API that you could use to list people from the organization who created certain things. And MSRC said that yeah, that's an issue, but that's not severe issue enough, so you are not going to get bounty. We're going to fix that, but no bounty for you. And based on the documentation, those people were actually global admins or user admins, so they were admin accounts. And I argued them that this is actually quite severe to me. So they were then that, oh, that's correct. That's what our documentation says. So he was actually awarded $7,500 US bounty, and he was quite happy about that. So yeah, I can help you with those kind of things. And then the fix that was provided, it's a new feature which you can enable. And then I was able to, evade that using the different protocol. So that's also a tip that those proprietary protocols, they are sometimes bypassing the security boundaries in a way that they didn't thought about. So you can also try those to do things. Okay, so yeah, I think I'm a little ahead of my time, so thank you for having me.